everyone. Welcome to another exciting live spoiler cast. I'm your host, Captain Logan. Tonight we're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. Here is my panel for the evening. Right behind me, it's Eric Holden.
I'm Luke Cage.
And Dan Torrey.
Hey, everybody.
And finally, returning to the channel after many months, it's the Curious Lo.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Lo, welcome back.
Woo. I don't know how to respond to that.
Lo has a baby now, and now she has a little bit of free time here and there and feels well enough to be on some videos again. So we are really excited to have her back on the panel. And Lo sent me a message this week and was like, ooh, I saw Spider-Man. I really like Spider-Man. I want to come and talk about it. So so here we are. We get to talk Spider-Man with Lo and Dan. Folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. If you're watching live, thanks for watching after the fact. If you were doing that, what we're going to do is talk to you for about an hour, and we're going to do all the ins and outs of Spider-Man Homecoming. As we did with Wonder Woman, we're changing the format slightly, where instead of just occasionally taking questions, although we'll make this as not occasional as possible, we're going to let you folks theoretically direct the entire conversation after Lo and Dan give their initial thoughts. So please don't start putting in your questions or aspects you want us to talk about right now. Wait until I give you a prompt for that, and we'll go through as many of those things as humanly possible. If anything doesn't come up tonight that we really should have tackled, it's all on you, folks. It's all your fault. So let's go ahead and get right into it, and hear first from Dan Torrey. Spider-Man, of course, is Dan Torrey's favorite superhero of all time, and he has I've been really looking forward to this movie almost as much. Well, and actually, Eric and I talked about this. We weren't real sure how excited we were about this movie. The biggest thing for me was, what's Dan going to think of it? I actually was thinking that more than I was even thinking, what am I going to think of this movie? So let's hear from Dan. Dan, what were your initial thoughts walking out, and what is your best thing, worst thing? Go ahead, sir.
First thing walking out is I think this is the most successful adaptation of Stan Lee's work ever in film, like of the adapted things we've done. I mean, Spectacular gets pretty close too. And there are Marvel films that I think are of as good quality of this, but I think this is the movie that feels the most like a Stan Lee comic book. This felt to me like it was a love letter to all of the tropes and the character stuff that happens in that initial 100 issue run we get with him and Ditko and Romita Sr. on Amazing Spider-Man. Everything from the Vulture twist, which I didn't really see coming, but I guess I should have maybe suspected that, because Liz Allen in the comics, her brother is Molten Man, so she has like a sort of relationship with a twist in one of those issues with a villain showing up and being related to her. So I guess I should have maybe expected that. But I also really liked how they were adapting things like the issue where Peter Parker gets rejected from the Avengers and ends up getting turned down at the end because he's a fundamentally different character that doesn't belong there. And I love that they understood that enough. It wasn't commercial enough where we were shoving Spider-Man to the Avengers like we did later on in the comics, and I'd never really liked that decision. Yeah, I mean, I think the Vulture is also the strongest villain that one of the strongest villains we had in the MCU so far. I really found his motivation to be really sympathetic. It really resonated with me because he reminded me a lot of my dad, because my dad's a blue collar, like working class kind of guy, just like him, and he runs a small business. So I sympathize with his plight quite a bit. And I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I thought he was the best one we've had so far. I could go on and on, but I want to give everyone else an opportunity to talk.
Lo, go ahead and give us your general thoughts.
General thoughts, kind of same thing. I really liked it. I definitely think that Tom Holland has done a fantastic job being that character. I loved the opening with the kind of vlog that he was doing, the video diary. I thought that was really clever. I did not see the Vulture reveal coming at all. I went and saw it at a drive-in theater, so I was allowed to be we were talking and stuff throughout the movie, just so my baby wasn't disturbing people. And I swore out loud when he when it was revealed that was her dad. I was just like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, there was a gasp across the crowd in our theater.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last time I had a genuine, I don't know, twist in a blockbustery type movie like this that caught me off guard like this did. So I really appreciated that for sure. But yeah, really fun. I think I mean, I don't know as much of like the history of Spider-Man as you guys do, but I think they did a good job of, from what I know about Spider-Man, of bringing that to the screen. And I feel like this is the first time that I've really seen, at least for my perspective, what I wanted to see of Spider-Man in a movie. They would get really close with the other two, but I think that they really hit it on the mark with Tom Holland.
The gasp with the Michael Keaton reveal happened both times I saw it with both audiences, and I saw it with a much smaller audience second time that wasn't reacting at all. And there was still a gasp across the crowd with that bit, which I thought was great. That bit is shot really, really well. Let's go ahead and just right away start going to the folks in the comments. Eric and I have already given our general thoughts in how we felt about. Say that again.
None of them did their worst thing.
Dan, what didn't you like, buddy?
What didn't I like about this
Dan liked
movie?
everything. Let's move on.
I have something
honestly,
if Dan needs. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Lo. I'll think. I might be able to think of something while you say yours.
Now, again, I mentioned that I saw this in a drive-in theater, and this scene with Peter kind of under the rubble, where he's sort of having his little like existential crisis, his little mini freak out. It was blown out a little bit just by like ambient light, so it was really hard to see what was going on. So I might have missed some things that might have made me like it a little more, but I felt like that scene was probably the only one where I was a little bit like, you're really hitting me over the head with the symbolism here. Like, I don't know, it felt very much like ground that we've already gone to in the previous two iterations of this. And part of what I really liked about this movie is that they didn't feel the need to show Uncle Ben die again, but they still had that in the movie with kind of May being overprotective, and I think they did such a good job of treading all these subjects for the third time, but having him be like, how can I be Spider-Man and Peter Parker? Like, we've never heard that before. And I felt like that kind of came to a head in that sequence with him kind of trapped under the rubble. And like, again, it was hard to see, but it seemed like there was a moment where they had like half of his face was like obscured or whatever, which we've seen.
Yeah, it was so good. Oh,
but we've seen it in every Spider-Man movie. I'm like, oh.
I don't know though. Have we ever actually done the half Spider-Man face thing in live
action?
Off
this side of.
Oh, that's
like
we're doing that. But yeah, that's actually, I don't know, something I've always wanted to see them find some way to incorporate, because that's such a major symbol in the comics. I can totally
have done that. There's the stuff with like there's the stuff in the Sam Raimi one where like his mask gets ripped.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He mentioned that, but I don't think just ripping it is exactly the same thing though. As his like seeing a reflection of it and thinking about not just I think like how do I be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but that moment is about confidence. That moment is about the fact that he is both. You know, it's kind of the Tony Stark thing, really. I guess he gets to figure it out a little bit quicker because Tony Stark is his mentor and he's already come to that. But it's finding that strength without it being all about just the macho I'm a superhero thing.
No, I thought that scene was phenomenal. I love that immediately he goes to being a little kid when everyone falls. Like that scream he gives is real raw and visceral. And shockingly, in 5 films, we've never done the lifting the stuff off of him really.
Yeah, which is a major scene in one of Dan's favorite issues.
Yeah, there's an arc with Dr. Octopus in the Stan Lee run around.
The Master Planner.
Yeah, the Master Planner storyline where he's trapped under watery rubble, and they did the thing, the scene almost exactly where he lifts the 2 pieces. They even get the angle right. I like that scene for story and completely fanboy reasons too.
Yeah, but Lo, I also think that I also can totally understand why you might think that's overblown if you're not familiar with that stuff, because it's difficult. It's difficult for me not to say, oh yay, they finally put that in there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I have enough of a sense of perspective with what I know about Spider-Man to really call whether or not that's beating us over the head. Like Eric and I had a conversation about this where he asked me right after we saw the movie, or after we shot it, how we felt about what I thought about the Echo in his head when Tony Stark says, if you don't, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't wear it. And I had forgotten they even went there. That's a pet peeve of mine. Usually I hate that. In the moment, I wasn't even thinking about it. I had, and that's a lot of it too, is that it is kind of curbing modern sensibilities because and modern mechanics and conventions, and can kind of get away with it because it's so Spider-Man. And we've tried to blend some of that before, and it's been kind of hokey. And it didn't strike me as hokey in this case. I think partly because I'm actually in this guy's head in a way that I either haven't been before or just didn't find the character as sympathetic, especially in my opinion when we're talking about Maguire. So it feels less like going back to the 60s and more like getting it from this person's perspective, which is what was missing before.
Yeah, and I liked having that in that scene for all the reasons you mentioned, as well as the complete fanboy thing in that scene in the comic. It's kind of the classic Steve Ditko thing where he draws these disembodied heads yelling at Peter about the various problems that he's struggling with in his life.
The looming heads of guilt.
Yeah, exactly. And Tony Stark is like the only one in this continuity that would be there at that point. So we'll
get more as the films go on. We'll get a bunch of voices.
I hope so. That'd be awesome.
And I'm glad we didn't actually do that as a disembodied head, because that would have been going too far. That would have been really silly if it's just like a floating a helmeted Iron Man head, and then Peter looks at him while he's trying not to die, and he goes, "Okay, but Tony Stark, in my brain, are you actually in the helmet, or is it just like one of your robot Iron Mans?"
So that kind of leads into it's not really a worse thing. I'm kind of two minds about it. It's the amount of technology that's in the Spider-Man suit. I'm of two minds about it, because when it first started happening with the talking AI and stuff, I was like, I don't know if I like that his suit is this high tech. I like Spider-Man being kind of like a poor kid that doesn't have a lot of resources and stuff like that. But I did, by the end of the movie, kind of see what they were doing with it, where it's kind of a device to have the internal monologues that Spider-Man has in the comics, but have it not be strange. Like, he has someone to have exposition with, and you can kind of get the things that in his head that because Spider-Man's a character that's infamous for that. Some people don't like reading Spider-Man comics. I think it's cool, but like how he swings over the city. Every Spider-Man comic that you've picked up probably opens with him swinging over the city with an internal monologue in his head, thinking about the problems that are going on in his life. And now he kind of has a device to make that happen. And I think that could be effective. I also like the web shooters having so many combinations, because now he can do all of the like weird things that he does with his webbing in the early Ditko issues, where he makes like a parachute. He makes like all different kinds of things out of webbing that like we kind of lose later on when we get more towards like the McFarlane stringy looking web.
When people doesn't need that parachute. He's got one in his back.
He's just got one in his back. Yeah. He's got the 60s Batmobile parachute.
Yeah. To make a good case for the AI, I still wish when we got to the end of that movie that he had a middle of the road suit. I wanted something more than what he had, but not the high tech.
In the comments, Superhero Fan Show says he feels like they'll get rid of Karen in the sequel, or at least use her more sparingly. And I can imagine that. I'm not sure how. But I kind of doubt that that's going to be like a gimmick we keep and a mechanic we keep going forward with. But Dan, you make a terrific point when you say that, at least for the sake of this film, he needs somebody to talk to. And Spider-Man so often, and this was my issue with the 90s animated series, which I reviewed a while back, Spider-Man can be really tough to write because he doesn't have a supporting cast in costume. He doesn't have a sidekick. There's not really anybody to chat with, and very often no one knows his secret identity, and so that makes it real dicey with not just how to get exposition, but also just how to get to know him really. And this movie doesn't have that problem at all. Now that we've got the guy in the chair, maybe they'll try to find some way to replace her with that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best usages of the guy in the chair I've ever seen. Eric and I talk all the time, and I'm with you, man. You talk all the time about how sick you are, of how every superhero needs
TV show, at
least in TV shows, needs like a backup person in their head all the time.
Like Supergirl is incompetent. She needs someone constantly telling her what to do. The Flash is the same
That's
way.
not true by season 2. She doesn't do that nearly as much.
Okay, Flash is the same way.
But Flash and Arrow both have that.
And Arrow's a lot like that, too.
I have a question, too, because I've only seen all of the films, the Iron Man solo films, I think, like, once or twice through. One of the jokes in this movie that I thought was kind of strange for Tony Stark, where there's a programming in the spider suit for him that kills people. I was like, does Tony Stark kill people?
Yeah, all the time.
Put that in the suit?
No,
okay, maybe
yeah,
I'm
in the first movie, he's got the things that
point.
shoot up and immediately murder all of the terrorists.
And remember,
that's all the time in the movies.
I questioned it the first time out.
I don't know if he'd call it kill mode.
Instant kill. Yeah. The second time I saw it, I warmed up to it more as I started thinking, okay, it is after the training wheels protocol. It is a thing that you have to earn, and you apparently there's a lot of hurdles you're supposed to jump through. We'll never know what those were, but I think the idea is probably that Tony Stark was a guy who made weapons for war. He's not against killing people if he thinks it's necessary, the righteous kill, and if he thought that Spider-Man was ready to make the third act Man of Steel decision, he might give him that.
I also want to know what instant kill mode is. Like, are there missiles hidden in that? Like, webbing is not an instant kill thing unless, like...
I would imagine laser beams out of the eyes, and that's why they're red, but I'm sure that's not what it is.
Yeah, it probably is just that, like, the like electrocution that he shot through his webs is like turned up all the way, as opposed to like to just knock people out.
Nathan Snyder in the comments says, "But Peter doesn't kill people." The thing is, he hasn't fully come into his own yet. He hasn't fully realized himself yet. So I'm sure we're not going to have a Peter Parker that would actually turn that mode on.
Well, and but Tony the idea wouldn't be thinking about Peter's ethics. In Tony's ethics, there's nothing wrong with murdering very bad people.
No, honestly, Peter's lucky that that Tony liked his aesthetic and ran with the spider gimmick, because it ends up reflecting his personality in that way really well. And he could have been like, you know what, Spider Thing, I realize that's your power set. It's freaking lame. We'll do something else.
I was bummed that the suit at the end is not just straight up the Iron Spider,
especially if he's never going to wear it.
Yeah.
Dan and I had a disagreement about this the other day. Dan was like, Dan and I were talking back and forth about it, and we were kind of just gushing back and forth because we both loved the movie so much. And he was like, "Oh boy, I'm sure glad he wasn't wearing that god awful Avengers suit."
It's awful. It should be cast into the pits of heck and never come back again.
I was like, "Oh, I kind of like." You can say hell on Geekvolution. That's okay.
I also didn't like the suit. But that might just be because I was like, why didn't you just do the Iron Spider?
No, it's cool. It's just a taste issue thing. It's just first glance, I was going, "Oh, that suit's really cool." And then a lot of people I've talked to have been like, "That suit was really bad," and I'm glad that he didn't wear it. And I was like, "Oh, I guess I have no taste in suits." But it is a metal suit, and that's kind of cool. But you're right. I wish it was just orange or whatever color that was.
Yeah,
wasn't it orange?
It was red and gold. It was the Iron.
Okay, right. Is it the Iron colors?
Yeah, it's the Iron.
I thought he had like a weird yellow or orange colored one.
I mean, the gold is sometimes kind of orangey.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah. It's just whoever's coloring on the day. We're getting way off.
It should have been that, or the classic metal suit.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
That also would have been cool.
It is sad that at no point in trying to audition for the Avengers did he put on the bag hat. But
yeah, I kind of wish that happened.
Although I'm not sure the Baghead isn't actually a part of Fantastic Four. I don't even know if they have the rights to Baghead. It is possible they don't. And you know why I say that? This is so off topic. There's a video game out right now. I forget what it is. It's an Ultimate Alliance type game where they've taken all the Fantastic Four characters out of it, and it's like a DLC thing. And if you already have those characters, you can keep them. But if you don't, you can't get them again. And there's a bunch of stuff they took out, and one of them was Baghead. And they took these things out because they lost the rights. So that's what makes me wonder if they even can use.
It's a game called Marvel Heroes. It's like a Diablo style. It's a Diablo style RPG, and it's like an online game. And they didn't lose the rights. Marvel just made them take the Fantastic Four characters out.
Okay,
that's weird because the Amazing Bagman is in the Spider-Man issue.
Yeah,
he wears a Fantastic Four costume though. So anything that has Fox things on it.
Okay.
We got to.
Sorry, Dan. Thanks for telling me about that because I wasn't sure what the real reason was behind that. Let's go ahead and get let's go to the phones as it were, shall we? We don't. This is not a call-in show. We're not actually going to the phones. It's a metaphor. Okay, so I want to start with this one, and folks, go ahead and start leaving us comments with your questions and things you'd like to make sure that we tackle. This was from a few minutes ago. Shingami Zan says that his biggest problem with the movie. He says it didn't really showcase Peter balancing being Spider-Man with other aspects of his life and the lack of focus on the baggage in Peter's life. What do you guys think about that?
That was the only thing this movie was about.
Yeah, I totally disagree.
Like, all it was about was, like, I mean, right down to the very end of the movie when he's making the decision to join the Avengers or not is about him.
Like, he's constantly forced to make.
And consequences in his other life for decisions he makes that are kind of the right decision as Spider-Man, like everything that happened with Liz and him almost kind of becoming a social pariah because he keeps bailing on people.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the classic Spider-Man thing. Like Gwen Stacy, when they first meet in college, initially hates Peter because he's always so cold and distant and like ditches them whenever they make plans. And that he only does that because he has other obligations. I mean, they showcase that throughout the movie with his relationship with Liz. She's a really nice girl because I feel like if I had done that to any girl I knew in my life, they would have ditched me after the first time. But like after like 3 times, she's like, "I hope everything's okay with you, Peter."
Yeah, and Spectacular Liz is like that too. Spectacular Liz just gets used to it. She's like, "Well, I know that's how you are."
I was getting a lot of Spectacular vibes off of this in general, and I've been hearing a lot of people say that. People really happy that it went to that tone, whether it did it intentionally or not, especially the high school stuff. I think. But anyway, I hate to gang up on you, commenter, but I also don't really agree with that. I think, if I may, and I hope this doesn't sound condescending, I can see why some folks would think that because some folks just really enjoy the feeling, and I'm not saying this is you, a person that commented that, but I think some people just really like the mood and feel of angst. And there is drama here, but it isn't so angsty because I feel like the characters that are affected by Peter having to bail on things and running off in the middle of things and stuff are just a little bit more reasonable about it, and they feel more like real people. It doesn't have to force any of that.
It's not like Tom McGuire where like his yogurt in the fridge spoiled and he just starts crying.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just Peter not being whiny, which I appreciate. And of course, he can be in a bad mood. He can be upset about things, but he's not. He doesn't just like suddenly drop everything and like he's about to slit his wrist. Like I feel like Tobey Maguire might do at any moment. Sometimes
he's not a sad sack.
He's not a sad sack. Right.
I feel like he was more like delusional in this, as opposed to being like, oh, woe is me, everything sucks, I can't do both of these things. Peter's just like, who cares about my real life? Like, I'm going to be Spider-Man and it's going to be awesome. And he's just like not thinking about all the consequences that are obviously there.
Which is exactly the Stan Lee Spider-Man. I mean, and this is the place he is in his life. I would like to know how long after his uncle being murdered or whatever happened, because I don't think that's been even remotely name-dropped yet, which is really strange.
His uncle was caught in the crossfire.
He mentions when Ned is talking about like whether or not he's told May when he first initially finds out in that scene. He's like, I can't tell her because of everything that's gone on with her recently. So I assume that's what they were talking about. But other than that, there was no mention of it. Yeah.
There's you have in Civil War the sense that that's probably what it is, but I don't think an uncle or any particular person comes up, which is a little bit strange with Aunt May. I could see the complaint that she needs more screen time. But I also imagine her being a much larger part of the next film, and maybe we don't want to do too much with her before she finds out the secret so that we're not wasting time with it. It's like now that she knows at the end, we can really delve into that later. And I bet within the first 10 minutes of the next film, we know exactly what happened with that.
It'll be Amazing Spider-Man 2 again. We'll never mention it.
I think eventually... I think
no, that would be what the, and then you get to the next movie and she's like, "Wait, you're going out? Where? Stop sneaking out of the house!"
Well, it's going to be the kind of thing, I think, since we did some legwork to set up Miles Morales in this movie too.
Yeah.
They're going to do the ultimate Aunt May thing where she's going to have all these superhero kids living in their house and she's going to kind of be the caretaker of them.
That would be great. I didn't even think of that.
That would be great.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Dan, for folks that don't know what you're talking about, catch us up to speed a little bit on the ways in which Morales was kind of set up.
So Donald Glover's character in this movie is the Prowler, and in the Miles Morales Ultimate Universe, the Prowler is Miles Morales' uncle named Ben, coincidentally enough. And he's kind of a petty criminal, and Miles, like, there's a whole story where he figures out that he's a criminal, and he had kind of looked up to him initially. And when Spider-Man is interrogating Donald Glover's character about the location of the weapons that, you know, Gargan was going to buy on the ferry, he says, "Yeah, I'd like to get those weapons off the street because I got a nephew in this neighborhood." And I was like, "Oh, so Miles Morales exists."
It was funny when we were watching the movie. About 2 seconds before he said, I have a nephew in this neighborhood," I like leaned over to Gabe and I'm like, "Oh, Donald Glover's character, I don't know like if they're gonna say anything, but that's Miles Morales' uncle." And like 2 seconds later, he's like, "I have a nephew in this neighborhood." I was like, "Oh, okay." There it is.
Yeah, and it's cool what little character development we got for him, because he is instantly not just fun and likable, but sympathetic. And even though we know he's going to make some major mistakes and do some bad things and be a supervillain later, I already like that guy, and he's already got some dimension. Before we get back to comments,
he likes ice cream just like the rest of them.
Since I've said that, I'll mention this real quick. My favorite thing about this movie now, after seeing it twice, is how much, I don't think I've ever seen this before, is, well, with maybe the exception of Batman Begins, how much the hero learns from the villain and still has to take him down. Peter Parker doesn't come to the realization and appreciation of being the street level hero and like taking up for the little man and stuff. If it weren't for the interactions that he has with Toomes. And he still decides, obviously, that, you know, Toomes is in the wrong and he has to take him down. But he ends up being weirdly almost another mentor figure in a way, because there are things that he agrees with that you know Toomes is saying. I think we could get some major parallels with the Prowler down the road if we actually get big screen Miles Morales.
And I like that we didn't do what would it be, the fourth time now, the surrogate father figure in the villain, like we had with Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and the Lizard. We didn't. They're able to do that without being like, "Hey guys, he's like his dad, he's like his uncle."
And it's a lot more effective. Like he doesn't actually directly have that role, and yet I buy in a way that I haven't with some of those.
Mm.
Yeah, I really liked the Vulture in general, and what they did with him, because his thing is all about responsibility, but they don't have to come out and say it in the movie and beat you over the head with it. Like, obviously, like, this is a guy that's driven by the responsibility to provide for his family, and he feels like the collusion of, like, big business, which is Tony Stark, and the government is kind of, like, destroying the opportunity that he once had to provide for his family, and he turns to crime because of that. And it's really sad and sympathetic at the, you know, because you can kind of see where he's coming from. And obviously, like, that's one of the responsibilities we all should have as good people. If you have a family, you should try to, you know, support them as best as you could. He just takes it to an extreme, and it kind of clashes with Peter's sense of responsibility as well, because it's like, well, you know, what would you do if Aunt May was in danger? You know, like, that I would imagine when she gets in some sort of compromised situation down the line in these movies, he's going to have to grapple with that sort of thing. Like, to what length would he go to save the people he loves? Because, you know, Vulture threatens him in this movie that he's going to kill them all if, you know, he doesn't stop his business. So I liked all of the parallels between the characters in that way. I saw a lot of people complain that it was sort of a surface level kind of story. And I don't agree. I thought there was a lot going on under the surface of what was going on with the characters. I thought they were really well developed, and maybe people think that because they weren't as explicit, but I thought it gave the audience a lot of credit in that way. I really liked that about it.
I think so too. I think it's pretty layered. Ultimately, I also like the simplicity of it. That once you start talking about it, you start picking up on a lot of things that, as you say, aren't necessarily there just looking at it. I mean, I'm not saying digging like pretending like things are there that aren't there. Sure. I'm just saying that there's that I do think there's a lot of giving the audience credit.
Well, one of my favorite subtle things that's never that the film never like underlines is that he's a scavenger. Like he's literally a vulture of
I was going to mention that too. It's really cool. Yeah.
He is and this breaks down real fast, but he at the start is kind of a Walter White from Breaking Bad, where you've got a guy who is doing the wrong things for the right reasons. The difference is Walter White, of course, becomes kind of mad with power and has these massive delusions of grandeur. And at the end of the day, he's not actually doing what he's doing for his family at all. And this guy, and I mean, he remains sympathetic all the way throughout because you understand, how he got there, and he kind of loses it. But with the Vulture, it always is for his family. And also his pride, he's an entrepreneur, and I find myself constantly feeling for him, even though he's doing the wrong thing.
Well, and he wants to keep it underground, and he hasn't built up like a criminal empire and sold all this stuff. It's like, and now we're going to take over the city. He's staying.
And it easily could have gone that way if there was a mandate from on high that the stakes had to be citywide or something.
Which is one of my favorite things about this film. Is that
I really liked that about it. That Spider-Man was really like the hero of Queens in the same way that Daredevil's the hero of Hell's Kitchen. Like he's a neighborhood-based kind of superhero, and I like that about it. It was very small scale in the same way that like the Stan Lee early stories with this character, the stakes were like very low. Like in the Vulture's first appearance, he's just kind of a petty jewel thief, and Spider-Man's like, I gotta stop this guy that's robbing people. It's not like the lizard's gonna turn the entire city into an army of lizard people like it was in the Amazing Spider-Man first film. And that certainly has happened in some of the other Spider-Man stories, but I really liked that we kept it small. Maybe that's to the detriment of some people that don't like that take on Spider-Man, like the early stuff, that either haven't read them or just don't like that era of the character, but as a big fan of that stuff, I really enjoyed it.
It also
I can see like. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it also helps to keep it grounded and rooted in the level of the world that we're in superheroing, which we haven't really gotten a chance to explore very much, and keeping it within the genre that it is. If this gets too big, it could potentially get tonally uneven and lose and not really fit with the high school comedy bit. And it's really smart in that way. Like, one of the things I was kind of leery of going into this was that that we're going into the same world as we've been in with the Netflix shows, but we're not actually dealing with any of those characters, and it's going to be a lot more lighthearted and chipper. And it kind of feels like there's a middle road, right, between the like, it's kind of a class thing where you have the high society people, and not everybody in the Avengers is that, but they're around Tony Stark, so almost by proxy, people think about them that way, right? And then
they're A-listers.
Yeah, and then you have the seedy underbelly, and that's Netflix. And this is working class, blue collar, everybody in this room right now, and we haven't explored that with the exception of Ant-Man. And there's a lot of Ant-Man here. A lot of people are saying this is Ant-Man done right.
Or at least better.
Yeah. Well, people that don't like Ant-Man are saying this is Ant-Man done right.
I mean, I didn't really care for Ant-Man that much, and I love this movie, so I guess I agree with that sentiment.
And Vulture almost feels like he could be a Netflix villain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Sure.
He's Diamondback, right?
That's interesting. Well, those are real different kinds of characters. I mean, because Diamondback is a crazy person.
But he's selling.
That's true. Tech. He is selling alien tech. Real quick, let's go back to the comments. The Ponderer says that he finds it interesting the movie ends with Peter adapting some of Vulture's philosophy in the story, treating that as a good thing, reiterating something I said earlier, but I just noticed this comment. It was cool that he articulated it better than I did. Well done.
Well, yeah, because just because you're the villain doesn't mean everything you say is wrong. Or just because you're evil doesn't mean everything you say is wrong.
And a lot of
are nuanced, and bad people can say wise things.
And a lot of the best villains, obviously, are villains who don't think that they're the bad guy. But sometimes that can become really shallow and superficial. Also, this is a case where I actually agree with a lot of things he's saying. He's just hurting people in the process. I mean, it is, you know, that classic Spider-Man responsibility thing where he's got a point that the rules aren't fair. It's not an even playing field, but that doesn't make it okay to put alien technology that can disintegrate people on the streets. And by doing that, you're hurting the very people that you're thinking about when you're saying we need to fight for the little guy, and you're not actually fighting for anybody but yourself. And that's the problem. And that's the big thing Spider-Man in those early Stan Lee issues, and a lot of the best Spider-Man is always dealing with, is characters who are only out for themselves, and he has to constantly remind himself that if he does that, he'll create the same problems.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked that the speech that the Vulture gave right before they had their. It wasn't really a fight because the Vulture kind of takes him out in like 5 seconds by dropping the concrete on him, but talking about like how young or blue collar people all are sent out to fight the wars of the upper class people. And it's kind of a sequel to Civil War, where Tony Stark is missing people for his front line in this civil war that all of these people are caught up in this conflict, and he recruits a kid kind of irresponsibly and throws him in the front lines and expects him to know how to do everything correctly, I don't know. I thought that was a cool follow-up to those kind of choices.
I was so glad that he brings that up in Eric's favorite speech, where he says the grown-up is talking. When he says, I took this 14-year-old kid and everybody thought I was crazy, and I was like, yeah, I was one of those people. I wasn't totally buying that you would even do that. Eric, I want to ask you a question, because I just went back and watched part of Iron Man 3 again today. Do you think that I'm reading too far into things if I were to say that Tony Stark doesn't think to do what he does with Spider-Man if it's not for the kid in Iron Man 3?
Hey, Harley? Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I
think there's something there.
And there was some speculation that Harley would come back and do some stuff.
Right.
Because that actor was signed for like 9 films.
But the way he deals with Peter Parker is so consistent with his attitude toward children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely think they might have been looking at that. And that he obviously sees himself in Harley, and maybe sees obviously himself in Peter. I think there's definitely a connection there.
Thomas Anderson in the comments, I think the ending is maybe open to interpretation. Maybe Vulture is keeping Spider-Man's identity secret so he can kill him himself. I had the same thing. I'm not entirely sure why he's keeping that a secret. I mean, the obvious thing to jump to is, he saved his life, and we know from earlier that means something to him. But he could have plans. I mean, who knows?
I mean, we'll see. I kind of interpreted it as Spider-Man is the reason his family is still intact, as like screwed up as it is now that he's in jail. Like his daughter would be dead, and he would he would be dead if it wasn't for Spider-Man. So family is the one thing this guy values above anything, and I guess he does have a sort of code, and he's not like a guy that has no morals to him. That's kind of where I thought he was coming from there, but yeah, we'll see what they do with him moving forward.
No, that's right. There's no reason. There's no reason he would want revenge or anything, because he's not even revengey at the end. I thought it was so sophisticated story-wise that we let this guy be so real that he has opportunities to kill Peter at the end, and he doesn't take them because that's not really what he's about. He's willing to do that if it's necessary. But I like when he says go home, like it's time to go home. He's gonna let him go. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on in that scene. He's not going to kill him. And even when he says, like, if you come after me, like, he warns him over and over again. But it's not, oh man, you keep getting in my way. You keep foiling my plans. So now I'm a typical two-dimensional comic book villain where I hate you for constantly messing. Oh no, you ruined my plans. You made it so I couldn't get my stuff. Like he also understands why Peter is doing what he's doing. And I think maybe he even, this is reading too far into it. I think it's possible he sees a little bit of his own sense of responsibility from when he was younger in Peter. That's also a possible thing. That if the world really, if all things were equal and it was a less cynical world, maybe he would take his Vulture suit and be a hero. But he doesn't live in that world, and so he's got to do what he thinks he's got to do.
Right. Yeah, agreed. That scene, I'm really excited to see live action Scorpion too. Let's just that's going to be awesome.
I really hope he's not just Miles' Ultimate Scorpion. I hope he doesn't just like have a chain, because he looks like that Scorpion.
Oh yeah, I really hope that they don't do that too. That'd be really.
Luckily, and I didn't realize that guy was supposed to be the Tinkerer until I looked at the credits at the end the second time I saw it. But the Tinkerer is still around, and he can build those things.
He's gonna be. I feel like he's gonna be a mainstay through the Marvel movies. I think he could be something of an evil night nurse kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool. And he was a lot of fun, I thought. Like, I like that he could get more sinister if something horrible happens to him, but I like that he's just a guy who's excited about the alien tech and willing to break the law.
He also turned out to be an alien the whole time.
The way we seated...
I was going to say that. Hopefully he's a guy with a rubber face on, and he's just an alien underneath.
The way... I didn't make that joke.
He was able to. That's why he was able to mold the technology so well.
he goes, I'm just a really excited alien guy. I thought that we did a really good job seeding the air heist. Where he constantly wants to do it, and the Vulture has a really good reason, and again, not a thing that's spelled out, but it's just consistent with his character, so I understand where he's coming from. No, we're not going to do that because we're trying to stay under the radar. If we go take down an airplane, there's a really good chance, and Stark's no less, there's a really good chance the freaking Avengers are going to be after
it. Well, it's Avengers tag.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like the fact that first Shocker is just a guy that is too excited about the comic book world he lives in, and so he just really wants to be a supervillain with a name and do things out in the open. And it's the real world. You can't do that.
I wish he had two. I don't like that he's just got the one.
I do too.
And it is. They said like early that it was an enhanced version of what what's his name in Civil War has.
Crossbones.
Yeah. It's an enhanced version of that, and it totally it is that. Like, it's not like they just said that. Like that weird thing with Iron Man 2 that doesn't make any sense that they said but isn't in the movie. How would he get to the East Coast? He's a poor kid in Queens. Why would he be at the Stark Expo? Anyways, but they said that, and it's not said in the movie, but it design-wise, it's clearly that.
I'm glad that wasn't in the movie now that you say that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's possible that his aunt made a trip there, but I guess.
They seem pretty poor.
Maybe 8 years ago, Uncle Ben had more money, and they've run out.
Maybe.
I mean, it's been a long time. Or 8 years. No, what I'm talking about. He's only been dead a few months.
Yeah.
According to the Russos.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know what the heck I'm just going to say things. I'm just talking. Dimitri, too, in the comments, I love this comment. Do you think Gank, and he's just Gank. I'm sorry. I can't call him Ned. I don't know how to.
Sometimes I call things different names facetiously. It just becomes what I say.
That's just what
I just can't call. Like, I just don't think of him as Ned.
By the way, in the credits, it's not Ned Leeds. It's just Ned. It's possibly has a different last name.
Like, everyone was just Ned.
Yeah,
or it was just
everyone was just
Ned all the way down.
Played a Ned.
It was just Liz, it was just Michelle, it was just Flash.
Now, Dan, I thought we had early reports, and maybe this is just unvalidated, but I thought we had early reports that it was in fact for sure Ned Leeds. But it's weird that
they were all cast with last names when all the casting.
But the credits didn't give any of them names.
But at the same time, Liz Allen was cast as Liz Allen, not Liz Toombs. So I mean,
they could do this with everybody. We could find out that every character is like some blend of two characters or a child of someone else we didn't know about, or it could be like that might not be Flash Thompson.
Oh man,
that could be Flash
that to be Roderick Kingsley. We could do a thing with that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I only care about Hobgoblin. Sorry.
I also think, and Dan won't like this because Dan loves Norman Osborn. You can't do a Spider-Man conversation without him analyzing Norman Osborn to death.
Flash Osborn.
But see, I thought Gank Osborn.
Oh, okay.
Which makes no sense.
No.
But the reason but not like his last name would actually be Osborn. But I just mean Gank filling that role and maybe doing Hobgoblin instead of or before Green Goblin, which I know just makes Dan cringe because we did it in the 90s Spider-Man show.
No.
But I'm just saying that it is his best friend as much as Harry Osborn was. You could see something like that going down, right? Where he and
if you name him Ned Leeds, like the connections are obvious. He's connected to the Hobgoblin. So if he is in fact Ned Leeds, you're gonna go there with that character.
That's 3 Hobgoblins. We've got 3 Green Goblins. Just let me have a Hobgoblin.
That's what I'm saying. I would be in this particular continuity. I'm totally fine with Hobgoblin first, and also you could still do it like the 90s Spider-Man show did, where it is Norman Osborn who creates that technology, and then you can do Green Goblin after it, and have him be poor man's Green Goblin in the first place. That's what I want to see. It's the one thing from that show I really want to see them adapt. No, that's not true. The Spot. I also want to see the Spot.
And the advantage of doing Hobgoblin potentially could be you could revive sort of the mystery that's inherent with all those Goblin characters, where you don't know who it is at first, and he's just sort of like this scary guy that goes around, and it's sort of Peter, like the story's about him trying to figure out who it is, instead of like, in the first Spider-Man movie, we spend a lot of time with Norman Osborn, we develop his character, and then it's not, when Spider-Man figures out who it is, it's a reveal for him, but not us. Sort of the way Spectacular did it, where like we thought it was Harry at first, and then there was a whole manipulation plot, and Norman was actually the one behind it all along and stuff. That was really cleverly done. So yeah, I mean, you can make it work. Osborn is just my favorite villain in all of comics, so I want to see him done well on the big screen. Like, not that I didn't like Dafoe's performance, I just think the character is like deserves to be written a little bit better than he was in that movie.
Yeah, I didn't mean to call you out, Dan. Actually, I totally did.
No, I didn't think you were calling me out. I was just saying. I think the likely place they'll go moving forward, though, is probably Sinister Six, obviously, based on the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I also have a theory that if we do Sinister Six, we might, and we've said it's a trilogy, we might get to that third movie and Peter may die. And then we'll do Miles.
Yeah,
because
I can see that too.
It is Sinister Six that Peter's fighting when he dies in Ultimate.
Real quick, so we apparently can't get like 4 words.
And I'm gonna cry.
4 words into a comment without running away with ourselves.
Sure.
I didn't actually finish reading this comment. Dimitri says, I just love this comment. Do you think Gank's guy in the chair fantasies were based on the CW superhero shows?
Yes.
I want that to be the case. Yes. I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. It's going to be interesting to see if like they do what's the Punisher's sidekick's name? Microchip?
Microchip has been cast for the show.
Oh yeah, so he has a guy in the chair too. Okay. And that's an actual television show, so we will continue the trend.
Well, he's not a guy in the chair.
Who are we talking about?
Microchip? He arms Frank.
That's true,
but doesn't he like sit in the van and be like, Punisher, like, this is going down? Yeah.
That's yes, he does. Yes, he does. He is the guy in the chair. He just also happens to he does it.
It makes more sense because he's military.
He does it in the in the animated Spider-Man show and in Warzone.
No, he doesn't do it in Warzone. He just gives him weapons in Warzone.
Oh, he doesn't. He's not the guy in the chair in Warzone. I guess he's not. Now that you say that.
No, there is no guy in the chair in Warzone.
Okay.
There's not even a van.
There's not even a van.
There's not even a battle van.
They get chair in a van.
That's what I want from Netflix. It's the one thing missing from all Punisher adaptations. Battle van.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun just to hear Punisher say battle van. So let's talk about Michelle or MJ, as it were, a little bit. There's a lot of different opinions about that in the comments, and a lot of people just asking us to talk about that in general. One person said they wished we just either had that up front or we weren't kind of teasing it, before the movie came out, because everybody thought she was supposed to be Mary Jane, and then Zendaya went on record and was like, well, my character is named Michelle. I can confirm that, but it's interesting. And there is some kind of a twist with it. I am of two minds about it. I liked her character a lot. I'm very interested in her. I think it's a really cool potential take on Mary Jane, and I can't wait to see her clean up. I also appreciated a lot more about her on a second viewing. And was getting more of a sense of what I thought they were doing with her and what her whole deal was, what she was all about. But I don't know how I feel about that ending. First of all, because she's in a room of people who know her name and who she has talked with a bunch of times. And I guess, maybe it's just because she says a lot of really strange things and keeps trying to reinvent herself. So I guess you could interpret that as she's decided just now, I'm no longer Michelle. Now I'm MJ. And that kind of Ninja Turtles thing. It's Dan. Yeah, not Danny. It's Dan. So,
I mean, this is not a Tim Robin.
I don't know if it's as much as her reinventing herself as it is like she just wasn't open with anyone before it. Like she says, like I don't have friends and stuff like that. And now that like I don't know, she has some sort of crush on Peter. Maybe she's going to open up to people. I don't know. The thing that I really liked about it, I saw it twice, and on a second viewing, I was paying attention to her more because I knew she was Mary Jane. And I love Mary Jane in the comics. She's one of my favorite love interests of all time. She's the best. But like the thing with her character is she puts on the kind of party girl persona as a way to mask her insecurities in the same way that Peter Parker masks his insecurities with humor. And I think the way Zendaya is playing that, she's hiding her insecurities by being an edgelord, where she's like, I'm not interested in anything. I'm going to eat toast at this party and say it's dumb to be here. Like that's what her character is. It's just like, it's the same flaw, but it's a different outward manifestation of it, if that makes any sense, which I thought was interesting.
And you can really easily see her having a bad home life.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And then she never goes there. She's got so much free time on her hands.
Yeah. She's kind of...
No, she's fascinating. I mean, all I'm going to do for the next couple of years until the next one comes out is imagine what she is.
I kind of have two minds on her because I adore her. I think she's great. And the
you
thing
called her your best thing.
Yeah, and the thing that Dan said, I completely agree with. Here's the thing: having talked with people about it, I feel like they changed it to Michelle just so I can't complain about the fact that Mary Jane's a redhead.
Yes,
but also Mary Jane is a knockout. Like, Peter should be uncomfortable around her, and I don't know. Like, I feel like they just changed her name to Michelle so they can take what they want from the Mary Jane character, but not have to be.
They're totally gonna Spectacular Spider-Man her though, like what they did with Gwen, where she was like a geeky, unassuming-looking girl, and then she gets a makeover and she's a complete knockout.
That's why I said I can't wait to see how she cleans up. I think she will be that, and I also think that this was on a second viewing. I just had a totally different read on her. I think she is they're trying to do the opposite of what the Raimi films did with Peter and Mary Jane, where he's invisible and she doesn't notice her. She's the invisible one, yeah. And that's an interesting take. I kind of like that. And then she is clearly throughout that movie, and I wasn't sure about it the first time around. On a second viewing, I think it's very clear that she is obsessed and enamored with him. One of the first things we hear her say is that she's not obsessed with him. She says she's sitting in that study hall because she likes to draw people in pain. She's in that study hall because Peter's there. And when you get toward the end at the homecoming dance, I think I'm right about this. She flips him off because she's pissed he didn't ask her. I think that's what's going on there.
Because I don't think it didn't look like she was with anyone.
She wasn't, and she's always doing just like weird things that are hard to interpret and understand. But they keep cutting to her in weird places where a scene will linger on a little bit, and she'll be looking past Peter, and as she's walking away, and that's supposed to be our into her, where this is all facade. She's putting on an act the whole time. Also, I have said a lot, not on the channel, but I say it all the time. In some ways, counterculture has kind of become culture, and I don't understand what counterculture in 2017 is now. Oh, I get it now. She is counterculture. She is whatever that is now. That's that character.
Yeah. One of the things that I caught onto in the second viewing when she was at the party eating the toast, which was probably my favorite moment with her. I was just like, she's just like in this party, like eating breakfast. It's like, this is hilarious. Just like totally doesn't care about anything. The only reason she showed up there was because of Peter too. Like she overheard in the gym class, like Liz invite him to the party and she went there. Like that's the only reason she went. So I really liked her character. I can't wait to see them like develop a chemistry with each other. It's going to be really interesting.
Is she going to be Michelle Jane Watson?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Her middle name could be Jane. She could be Michelle Jane Watson.
Her last name is Jones, though. I think that I don't know that they say it in the movie, but they were talking about that. Her name is Michelle Jones.
What? I'll trust that. I don't trust it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if it's not in the movie, like, obviously they can change it. Like,
they can change that later.
Her, like, ever since the movie premiered and everybody knows that she's MJ, like, even Zendaya has been like, oh yeah, it's Michelle Jones, MJ.
Oh,
like,
J comes from Joe. Okay.
She's not Mary Jane. She's like kind of, you know what I mean? Like they're making her MJ.
Red hair.
Yeah. But
yeah,
also,
but she could be dying in black.
She could dye her hair red.
Black. She also
I can totally see that type of girl dyeing her hair red.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think she could still be natural and it could be dyed now.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that because I know Zendaya naturally has black hair, but like I could totally see that in that character, like dyeing her hair red because she thinks it's like edgy. You know what I mean?
Also, to a point that Dan made to me the other day while we were texting back and forth, we have also blended Betty Brant with Gwen Stacy. Dan, that character I told you about at the end, it actually is Betty Brant. It's the one time.
Yeah, I noticed that the second time. I was like, yeah, that's.
I didn't realize that.
She's the co-host of the school news show, right?
Which she's
the spitting image of Gwen Stacy. She has the black headband and everything.
Yeah, and what's funny is Dan and I each noticed opposite things and had an argument about this because Dan was like, why does Betty Brant look like Gwen Stacy? And I was like, what are you talking about? She doesn't look like Gwen Stacy. I don't know what you're talking about. But there's this girl at the end that does. Oh, they're the same person. And I didn't pick up on that. The new show is one of the most accurate high school things I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
My high school had one of those. One of the funniest moments in the whole movie is when Betty Brant goes, "Thank you, Spider-Man."
I loved when the guy asked her to go to homecoming with him on the camera, and she said no, and he's just like,
the camera on his face. It gets all blurry.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I have read articles that claim that this is the most accurate portrayal of what high school life is like now on film. And I don't know how true that is because I haven't been in high school in 13 years. But I do see in movies all the time where it feels too much like when I went to school, and I talk to kids that make it sound like it's not like that anymore. So I felt like I was getting an education with this. I felt like.
I have siblings that are in high school, and I feel like the biggest thing that's very different that movies can never seem to capture that I think Spider-Man did really well is that bullying is completely different now than our age group. Even though we have a bit of a widespread here between the four of us, like it's changed a lot. There's no more of this like shoving people in a locker and like the whole I don't want to say the name that he was calling Peter over and over again, but Flash is so interesting to me that they took this stereotypically very like physical bully and turned him into more of a like psychological bully, which is more what bullying is now. It's not.
Yeah, he's just a spoiled rich kid now.
Yeah,
but he's more than that because he's also a pseudo-intellectual, which is interesting. Where he is he's cutting corners. Like his name for the first time I've ever seen it means something. He's Flash because he rushes too hard, and I guess he was Flash before because he ran real fast on the football field. But he's Flash because he rushes things and he's trying to cut corners, which is also a big Spider-Man thing. I mean, like Uncle Ben dies because he cut corners.
I can't wait till he goes to war and loses legs.
I think he might lose his legs in some intellectual pursuit, Eric. I
just want to jump back to the MJ thing for one quick second. I have been told, I should have sourced this, I should have looked this up before I did this, but I have been told that Kevin Feige has come out and said she's not Mary Jane. She's not supposed to be there, Mary Jane. It was just like a nod to the fans.
Because her name is Michelle Jones. I mean, like,
right. But I
they
still
might
think
be
they could end up
saying
together.
she's not Mary Jane so that they can get away with doing whatever with her character that they want to, and people won't be like, "That's not Mary Jane. That's not Mary Jane." Like, they can.
She's going to be this version of Mary Jane.
Yeah,
they're going to make her Mary Jane.
Here's the thing: they can't say that until they bring in Mary Jane. Like, once they brought in Mary Jane, okay, you can say this is not Mary Jane. But there are too many parallels to that actual character, and things that they're clearly intentionally putting on their head. No, it's this version of Mary Jane, whether they get together or not.
Who's the girl that's in love with Peter in Untold Tales of Spider-Man? That Kurt Busiek and
I don't remember.
It should have been her.
You're supposed to know everything, Dan.
It should have been her.
Sorry.
No, don't look it up. Your time is passed. You had your shot. You've lost your shot. That's it.
We thought you were the biggest Spider-Man fan, but I guess not.
Yeah,
I know. I need to turn in my Spider-Man fan card.
That dope channel in the comments says he graduated 2 years ago, and it's 100% accurate. So. Thanks, buddy.
I mean, when I was in high school, physical bullies still existed, but like they weren't like fighting people in boxing rings like they were in the Stan Lee comics.
Oh, so. This is a great. This is an excellent point. Red Leonard Tilly says, "Kudos to the girl playing Betty. She was good in the film and also played bad acting well, which is hard to do." Yeah, good call.
Yeah, that's true.
Real quick, I'd like to talk about what I think is the funniest line in the entire movie. Which is, and I was laughing constantly, and I don't think that was a problem. I think this is a comedy. With I mean, it's obviously
is it also
dramatic.
My favorite line, my funniest line?
I'm not sure. My favorite line, what I think is the funniest line in the entire movie is the gym coach who says that Captain America is probably a war criminal. What is it? Thank you. A war criminal now. Oh, that just I lost.
No, it's hilarious.
And I was already losing it. I was already losing it because right before that, Captain America points to the other side, and it was in is like your teacher.
Oh, Captain America was great in this when he turns the chair around and sits on it and goes, "So you have detention." This is the best thing ever.
So your body's changing.
I know a little something about that. And obviously the end credits is one of the funniest of all time. But I also think it's kind of fun that Captain America is here, given that we've got Tony Stark here, and we're talking a lot about the history of the Marvel Studios in general, and the and how much that character has grown and changed now. And we've been comparing him to Captain America, going all the way back even before Captain America was a character yet. And I just think it's an interesting choice that we got him in there somewhere. And that he's talked about as a war criminal, while Tony Stark is now in the Captain America role. I mean, you would expect Captain America to be the guy that is mentoring Peter Parker, and I think it's ultimately, as commercial a choice as it was, it's kind of a stroke of genius, or we at least landed on the genius in it, because he sees so much of that irresponsibility in himself. I think there's a lot of mirroring the first Iron Man movie in this. It's real bookended. And I almost wish this movie had come out next year because it's the 10th anniversary, just because that works so well.
There was a lot of cool nods to the Marvel Universe. I mean, I could go on and on about like all of the homages to the Lee Ditko comics, which we should talk about at some point because I think they're cool. But like, did you notice that the principal was a descendant of one of the Howling Commandos? He had a picture of the World War II. It's played by the same actor, and he had a picture of himself in World War II sitting in the background in the office.
I saw the picture, but I was just thinking, oh, he went to war. It didn't occur to me.
Yeah, that guy's one of the Howling Commandos. Yeah,
that's why I wish I knew history as well as Dan, because I would have immediately. I could recognize a World War II outfit if I was looking for it.
You went to a theme park and got one of those vintage looking pictures.
Right, yeah. They photoshopped your head on top of a Howling Commando's body, right?
Yeah, and then when they had like the posters of all the scientists, there was like Howard Stark and Bruce Banner and stuff like that. So like that stuff was cool. Like people that have made scientific discoveries in the Marvel Universe.
They were teaching about Sokovia in school.
Yeah.
Like a lot of...
Yeah. I love how much this feels like a lived-in Marvel Universe. This is what it would feel like living in the Marvel Universe.
And not just that it's lived in, but that it's different from the world we live in. This stuff has changed changed the world so much. And I like that you get the contrast of what the world was like 8 years ago and what it is now. The timeline doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be 8 years. It doesn't make any sense. Iron Man 3, because I was watching that earlier, confirms for sure that at that point it was supposed to be real time, that it was the number of years, because you have 1999 at the beginning, and they say 13 years, so that's when it was. So this movie takes place in 2020.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not a big deal, but it does.
Yeah.
We skipped some time somewhere. I don't know why we did that, but that's what
it's interesting because, to get real world for a second, the New York attack now becomes this universe's kind of second 9/11.
Yeah,
I had the same thought. Major event that there's going to be people that like know exactly where they were when that happened, and there's also going to be people that were like 5 and don't remember it. They're now teenagers.
Guys, we've got about 5 minutes left. Why don't we go ahead and do some final thoughts, and we'll let you guys post some more things. If there's anything you really want to make sure that we get to, post in the comments right now. And I was kidding earlier when I said it's your fault, because you guys said all kinds of things we just did not get to. Dan, big things we haven't talked about yet, or something you just want to make sure you get to say before we adjourn.
Well, everything about this movie was a love letter to 60s Spider-Man, and like Spider-Man in general, which I really appreciated. Like, okay, so Peter goes on this field trip to DC in this movie, and that's a lot like when Spider-Man like in the early Ditko and Lee comics, Spider-Man does that all the time. He goes to Florida to fight the Lizard. He'll go on like excursions to like for specific reasons. The scene reminded me a lot of the scene with J. Jonah Jameson's son stuck in the spaceship when it's coming down in one of the early issues where he's trying to land it correctly. There was just all kinds of really cool stuff like that. The reason the Ramones are so heavily featured in this movie is because they covered the original Spider-Man theme back in the day.
I said that too.
Right.
Yeah, which was really cool. And then the end credits were fantastic, and there was a lot of like drawing recreations of scenes from the 60s cartoon, which was really awesome. The theme is an orchestrated version of the 60s cartoon theme, which to open a movie this reverential to the 60s Spider-Man comics was like so cool. Like,
I don't know if you noticed, but
after hearing that, like that we were in for this much of a treat, but it definitely paid off.
I lost it at that. It was so reverential. It was beautiful. It was just crazy to hear like 80-piece band or something playing
I
didn't
catch it immediately.
Yeah,
you looked like I was an idiot.
No, I did because you were talking through it. Like I was losing it at how cool that was, and you were like telling me something.
I was talking about the Vulture being a scavenger from the opening scene.
Sure, and I was like, shut up, this is amazing. And anyway,
Sure.
Yeah, but real quick, I got to say something about the score. Okay. Giacchino actually writes his Spider-Man main theme around that also. The first few notes of that theme are the ba ba ba, and then he goes a different place with it. But he does start with it and right around it, which is really cool.
I have a quick question for Dan because of Dan's feelings going into this movie early on. How did you feel about Iron Man?
I didn't think he was as intrusive as I thought he was going to be. I liked how little he was in the movie. I could have done with a little bit less of him and like the Stark tech stuff, like the reservations I had about the suit and stuff, like it having too much tech in it and stuff. Like, but I didn't find Iron Man's presence to be like making this feel like a Marvel team up movie rather than a Spider-Man movie. I thought this was enough of a Spider-Man movie that he was supplemental and not like dominating it in the sense that like, oh, we got to put Iron Man in this movie to sell it commercially. One of the other things I wanted to mention about about the score and like the soundtrack of this too was I appreciate all of the 60s era rock music that we used, like what people would have been listening to at the time in the 60s. Like I love all that stuff. So like, you know, like the stuff they used from the Rolling Stones, and like Canned Heat is one of the bands that played at Woodstock when they're on the bus on the field trip. They play one of their songs. It was like we're playing even like music from the period when these comics came out. It's like it was awesome. But yeah.
Connor, hi Connor. Connor in the comments says he likes how the adult figures out the identity in 2 seconds. Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah, that scene was chilling, by the way.
It was wonderfully suspenseful.
Yeah,
but also hilarious. He picks up a gun.
Yeah,
and I just lost it
immediately. Right to the gun.
Like Michael Keaton was not at all wasted. I didn't feel like anybody else could have played it like he did. They wrote it like that because they got Michael Keaton, I think. Yeah, that was just wonderful. Lo, anything else you want to make sure we talk about?
I just wanted to mention that I was really happy to see Happy outside of an Iron Man movie.
He was great.
Me too, I liked a lot.
Yeah, I like seeing him interact with Peter. It's a different dynamic than the one that he has with Tony. In fact, it was almost like a role reversal, I feel like, because he gets to be the one that's just like, no, Peter, like, shut up, like, all that sort of stuff. So that's interesting.
He's the gap bridger between the blue collar and white collar. I think that ends up being really important because he's in that world, but he's not of that world. And he got demoted. He got promoted, and then he got demoted.
We don't like to talk about this.
Yeah, it was hilarious because he makes a big deal out of how great it is that he's had a security in Iron Man 3, and I had forgotten about this. Toward the beginning of that, Gwyneth Paltrow is Pepper Potts is like we have 300% more complaints now since you've taken over. He's like,
that's good. That means I'm getting something.
It's a good thing. Yeah, that's hilarious. So Lo, you mentioned Happy. There was a thing I was preoccupied by through the whole movie that was driving me absolutely insane with that, which is he picks up his phone whenever the plot needs him to, and that drives me insane. Oh, yeah. I couldn't deal with it. That's actually a bit of a complaint I have. Where at the beginning for 2 months. He's been texting him and
calling him. He leaves messages.
Yeah, and I wanted to think, oh, he just doesn't answer text, but he'll answer the phone. Nope. He didn't pick up the phone. So later, there are 2 or 3 places he picks up the phone, and it's when the plot really needs him to. I hated that. That drove me crazy. Anyways, Lo, anything else you wanted to talk about?
I loved the very end of the credits scene. I mean, it has nothing to do with anything important, but it made me laugh so hard. Especially because, like, we saw a double feature, so, like, we weren't going to go anywhere no matter what. But, like, we're all sitting there, and there's, like, people in their cars waiting to leave, and we had our windows rolled down, and we heard people, like, kind of laugh groaning. They were like, all right, like, okay, we're going to leave now.
I think it's the best joke after credit scene since the shawarma one, where like it really kind of nailed that.
Yeah, I think it's even funnier than the Deadpool one if we want to go outside of MCU.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of fun, and obviously in the universe that's recorded earlier, but I think it's kind of fun that the next time we see Captain America physically on screen after the really heavy, dramatic way the last movie ends is with these
Boy
PSA
Scout
videos. It's hysterical.
One of the things that I was thinking about when I was watching those Captain America PSAs was, man, I liked what the Avengers Captain America costume looked like when it came out. It looks terrible compared to some of the other ones they put on him since.
It looks really bad. It looks bad on white. That's the thing. It's all white behind it. It looks atrocious.
Even on the TV, I was like, wow, that suit doesn't look right.
Yeah, it feels like what's fun about it is they forced him to go back and do the propaganda crap he had to do in World War II.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're exactly right. That's what it is.
That's hysterical. Eric, what else do you want to make sure we talk about?
I don't know if I really have anything. I think we kind of hit everything. We didn't really talk about Liz at all. Is anyone got anything to say about Liz?
I like the actress.
She's a little more of a prop than she is a character. I mean, like she's reasonably developed. But I mean, she's not like a but she's not. I don't know. I feel like she doesn't really have like her own plot. She's just kind of there to be disappointed by Peter.
She is typical Spider-Man first girlfriend, and I like that he gets a first girlfriend.
She's a lot more reasonable than Stan Lee's Lizzo, and that's the credit I'll give her.
Betty Brant.
Yeah, Betty Brant. Was also drama queen-y eventually.
Doesn't she end up with Harry in the comics?
She does. They get married and they have a kid.
And I wonder if they'll do something with that, like since like I don't know, like I can see them doing something with that.
Right, the Osborns are operating out of Oregon. That's what's going on.
She could come back.
They're oil barons.
Oh, are you saying that he bought out Roxxon and it was in Oregon, and that's is that what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's what happened. Okay,
he's the mayor of.
I'm saying Peter's the reason that her dad is in jail, and she could get resentful. Although that's not going to happen because her character was too goody two shoes for that.
So the Voltron, like we were going to have in Spider-Man 4 by Sam Raimi.
Don't say Voltress. That dope channel in the comments says, since it's been confirmed that another MCU hero will be appearing in the sequel, who would you like it to be? They said Falcon. It won't be Tony, and Evans is confirmed to leave after Avengers 4. I didn't know that last part of it. Falcon is my pick too. Yeah. But I want to see Falcon in one of these. In fact, the most disappointing thing about this movie is the Falcon's not in it. There's no Falcon. It's an MCU movie.
We went to Avengers facility. I was like, oh, Falcon's going to be here.
That's right. Yep.
If I were to choose any of the Avengers, I think Hawkeye would be the one I'd choose because he's the family values guy.
Good point. Yeah.
He's the guy I'd want to see interact with Peter Parker, and I feel like he could he's got a lot of the same stuff going on the Vulture has going on, but he's just like a good guy instead. So I feel like he would fit pretty well.
Or maybe it could be Vision, so they could have a conversation about how he almost roomed next to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like doors or walls.
We could do a riff on the JMS issue where Loki shows up and Spider-Man and him have hot dogs together.
That's true. And then Loki goes him a favor, and we never touch that again.
Nope.
Well, folks, unless anybody else wants to bring up one last thing, speak now or forever hold your peace. We're gonna go ahead and
this is probably the best Spider-Man movie, and like Logan is probably a better like story movie than this, but I think
those are uncomparable things.
Yeah, exactly.
Incomparable.
I had previously said that like Logan was my favorite superhero movie, but like because I'm such a big Spider-Man fan, and this was like kind of everything I wanted, this is probably like just slightly above that. But yeah, I really, really love this film. You guys should go see it. It's great.
I thought it was right because there's people listening to every single spoiler.
Yeah,
and then they haven't actually seen the film yet. I thought this was so refreshing, Dan. Like I said this in the how we felt about it. Felt to me like Spider-Man had never been on screen before, which sounds like a really mean thing to say about the other Spider-Man movies. I don't mean that. It just this is more my Spider-Man than those other movies were, and I also feel like it found that balance in a way that those franchises didn't quite manage in being a comedy, but also talking about some heavy things and letting Peter Parker be a constantly evolving character. In one way or another, each of those takes itself a little too seriously somewhere, and I don't think this movie ever has that problem.
I really hope in the seat. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm glad that you have that experience, I have that experience, and we're like really big into the comics. And Lo, you mentioned that like really early on, like you had the same experience where it felt fresh to you, and like they nailed Spider-Man, and you just kind of instinctively know that based on what you know from the character from like other media and stuff, which is really
well. And I mean, I've been reading comics for only 2 years, and I've mostly just done new stuff, so like I don't even know a lot of this classic stuff, but I still like. He's such a big character just in pop culture, in our culture. Like, who Spider-Man is. And I felt like they got to the point where he was snarky without being cocky.
Yeah.
In like
it's a fine line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Lo, because I made the statement to Eric, and this is not perfect, but in some ways, I think this movie is almost like Deadpool for families. Just because you've got a guy in a full-blown head thing where you can't see his face, and he's really expressive with his eyes, and he's constantly snarkily responding to everything, and he's like a street-level hero, and he'll like just walk around on the street, follow people around and stuff.
and robberies and stuff, and help ladies across the street.
Yeah, exactly.
And Charles fought for them.
Yeah, so that scene where he where he tries to stop a guy from breaking into his own car was hysterical. I felt like I was seeing what it would be like if you had like what real superheroes in real life would be like. It's just
and Stanley's cameo was hilarious, in a costume where he was just like, "Don't make me come out there, you punk." It's like, it's great.
I hope in the sequel we're a little bit more liberal with names. No one has a last name, and there were two shockers. One of them's Herman Schultz, one of them's Montana. I don't know which one died.
Montana's the one that died. They did.
Oh, is he? That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you mean more conservative with names? They were very liberal with names.
No, I want to hear names more.
Oh! You mean with them actually coming out?
Yeah, I want them to actually speak names a little bit more frequently, so I know who people are.
Yes, I totally.
Well, we didn't even get Michelle's name until like at least halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
like
that's true. Yeah,
she'd been in multiple scenes up until that point.
I wanted her to be a figment of Peter's imagination.
She's dead.
I love that.
She's dead.
One of the funniest lines in the movie is when Gank or somebody says, "Well, you're here," and she goes, "Am I?"
Isn't that what she's in the post?
Yeah, she's in the toast. Yeah. Am I?
The Biden walks away. I was like, "This is fantastic."
Out, am I?
I loved when Michael Keaton named the Shocker when he like got in his face. He's like, "Yeah, you're the Shocker, huh? You're the Shocker. You shocked people."
Yeah, you shocked.
What is this? Pro wrestling?
You're the Shocker now.
Yeah, you're the Shocker now. And also that bit where he accidentally disintegrates a guy is so funny. And I told Eric the other day that's very much a kind of a Whedon moment, and it's obviously making fun of turning that trope on its head where you have the bad guy that kills somebody in front of them that they for intimidation or because they don't like what he's saying, and obviously he didn't mean to do that, and then the music suddenly gets real sinister as he goes, "Oh, I thought that was the other gun." Like, not after that line, during that line. Yeah, it's hilarious. The last thing I want to mention is how impressed I was that I felt like we actually needed a Marvel Universe this lived in before we got to Spider-Man. It ultimately ends up feeling really fortuitous that we waited this long, because when Marvel first got put this together with Sony, I was thinking, okay, that's great and all, but it's going to be weird to have a Marvel Universe that's gone this long without getting Spider-Man. And I think part of the reason I thought that was because it wasn't a given immediately that it would be high school Peter Parker. So he could have been operating for years before we finally got to him. And I thought that might have been where they went with it. You already have in the comics, even though you haven't had a lot of issues yet, a sense of lived-in universe with the Fantastic Four, where it is kind of some other superheroes' world, and he's just living in it when he tries to join the Fantastic Four at the beginning. And I think we nailed that. It's really cool that this is the movie that brings so much of that stuff together, where it feels like it's just not the Marvel Universe without Spider-Man. I mean, it's not without the Fantastic Four either, but like it's really not the Marvel Universe without Spider-Man. And it feels like we were pushing toward like 90% Marvel Universe, and now it feels like we're at 100%. Although if we ever got the Fantastic Four back, I might say that again later on. I don't know, but
and the X-Men too, as separate as they can be from with their various stories and stuff. I'd like to have everybody together. That'd be great.
That's true. That's true. But I do feel, and I've said this before, I do feel like I can imagine a Marvel Universe without the X-Men in a way I have a tough time with it with Spider-Man. Especially because
definitely.
You don't have to ignore Spider-Man and his continuity to tell most Marvel stories. You do with a lot of things with X-Men.
Yeah, exactly.
We forget that the mutants are even a thing. That is its own universe, and we just occasionally jump over to it.
So much so there's an event about it that happened a few years ago where Cyclops is like, "You guys don't pay any attention to us. Look at the bad things that have happened.
We're not in an alternate. We're not in an alternate universe. We're right here, dude.
Yeah.
Wolverine is an Avenger. What are you doing?" Well, anyway, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed our spoiler cast. And as always, feel free to leave your comments. Let us know what you thought of this movie, and we look forward to reading them. Thanks, everybody, watching live. We had a really nice, big, healthy audience tonight, and we appreciate you guys coming out to hang out with us and talk to us a little bit about it. And we will see you again with another one. I don't know what the next spoiler cast is going to be. Eric and I...
Thor?
Yeah, unless
comic book stuff anyway.
For comic book stuff, right? I don't think there's anything before Thor, is there? Comic book wise?
Unless we get Kingsman.
And Kingsman I know Lowe's a big Kingsman fan. There could be a spoiler cast for that. I think it's more likely that'll just be a how we felt about, but that could happen. I just don't want to say for sure yet. I don't know about
apes. I'll do a spoiler cast by myself. I'm just kidding.
If we see apes and we decide there's just so much we want to talk about, we could come back and do that. I know Dan likes those movies.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Apes fan, and I love the previous two movies. So
somebody mentioned Valerian.
Valerian,
I don't know if we need a
Valerian will be at least to how we felt about, but I forgot that is technically a comic book film. Certainly.
Yeah.
And we're all coming together for the next Saw movie. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah.
That's happening. I didn't even realize that was a thing. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Live horror torture time.
Oh God.
right here on Geekvolution. I want to mention also just some house cleaning stuff. Next week, Eric and I we haven't picked a day yet. We'll let you know when, but Eric and I are going to be doing a, hopefully we can manage it next week, a 3-hour marathon of Transformers Prime. So look forward to that. The next big live marathon after that, because we have hit some landmarks on Patreon. The next one after that's going to be Power Rangers, and we are $5 away right now from even a third one. So if somebody wants to run over to Patreon and pledge $5, you can help us decide even what the next one of those is going to be. So anyway, Transformers and then Power Rangers, and likely, so don't want to be presumptuous, but something shortly after that even. And I also will have a new Counting Crypto Freaks up for you tomorrow, and lots more fun stuff coming this week.
I have a solo video finally.
And Eric has, I wasn't going to announce it because I'm not positive that comes up this week, but I'm going to try to get that up this week.
At some point.
But Eric is bringing back the Indie Comic Vault, and so that'll be out this week as well. And anyway, thanks a lot for watching, folks. We will see you again shortly with lots more reviewing goodness here on Geekvolution. I am Captain Logan, and this was...
I was there.
No, this is Luke Cage.
I did that feeling.
Oh, okay. And Spider Dan Torrey.
Good night, everybody.
And the inquisitive and curious Lo.
Night, guys.
Thanks again for watching, folks. I am Captain Logan saying good night. Good night.